Good afternoon. I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Welcome to today's meeting. It is a big birthday year for the Detroit Economic Club. 90 years of incredible speakers and networking, and that tradition continues today. And today is also our annual Career Readiness Academy graduation day. So we're excited about that. I want to especially welcome our DEC members. If you're not a DEC member yet, give me 10 seconds to convince you. Your next job, prospect, client, maybe even best friend is right here in this room. If you want to build your network and hear from thought leaders on our stage, we invite you to join at econclub.org. Invest in you and join today. In fact, if you want to sign up today, we'll give you a free event ticket that you can use through June, and you can stop at our membership table on your way out today. As we get started, I would just ask you to take a moment and silence your cell phone so we don't disturb the program. And of course, if you've been with us before, you know we always begin with a pledge and a prayer, so please stand and join me as we honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And kindly remain standing as our invocation today will be delivered by Reverend Jeffrey Dretches, President of Fish and Loaves Community Pantry. Reverend?
Thank you. Let's bow our heads for a moment of reverence and prayer. O God, in the descent and tumult of our present days and amid all of our concerns about the future of our nation and the world, keep us mindful that we are your people, called to serve the cause of what is fair, just, and loving. Against polarization and moral paralysis, grant us the wisdom and grace to appreciate that mutual respect, civility, and goodwill still matter, and that your purposes are best served when we unselfishly work for the benefit of all. In the decisions we make and the choices we pursue, O God, guide us that we might labor together to build a future that yet values the initiative and prerogatives of the individual, but upholds and furthers locally and globally the well-being of the larger community. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. You may all be seated. A couple things on your table really quick is our season lineup. General Motors CEO Mary Barra will be in the soundboard on May 23rd, so we want you to get your ticket for that. If I could have your attention, please. Thank you. Tons more on our website, tons more to come, so please get your tickets before they sell out. Thank you. Also on your table is our corporate sponsors and partner brochure. Make no mistake, we would not be here if it wasn't for their generosity. Thank you so much to those organizations. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, be happy to talk with you or anybody on my team as well. So I mentioned at the top, today is graduation day for high school students who've been part of our Career Readiness Academy, and you are going to play a role in their graduation. More on that in a moment. Our Career Readiness program is now in its 9th year. The mission of the program is to teach career exploration skills to high school students as they prepare for life after high school. Over 50 young leader members of the DEC mentored students in career exploration, helping them to think critically about jobs of the future. They also taught networking skills, interview skills, elevator pitches, personal budgets, and they helped them to learn what is LinkedIn and how best can I use LinkedIn going forward. This year we mentored over 200 high school students in 15 high schools throughout Detroit and Metro Detroit. Teams of our Young Leader mentors have met with their assigned students beginning in December for 8 sessions, and they have done a fabulous job. I do want to take a moment and ask all of these terrific young leader mentors in the audience with us today. Please stand so we can thank you for your hard work and dedication. Please stand. Nice job, guys. Way to go. I also want to say thank you to some very special people who invested in the Career Readiness Program. Some of the investors are with us today, and they've made generous contributions. So when I call your name, please stand, and I would ask you all just to hold your applause. From RFT, Linda Ferrante. From Imagine Entertainment, Trevor. From Roy Smith Company, please stand, Mike. From First State Bank, April, Phil, and Mark. From NBS Commercial Interiors, Lori and Megan. From Honigman, Glynis. From Baker Tilly, Patrick. Colleen. From Aon, Ahmed. From PNC Bank, Mike Bickers. Sponsoring a school but not in attendance today, Barton Mallow Company, Beth Chappell, Sandy Hermanoff, Gene Heil, and one anonymous donor. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking these generous individuals and companies. And I could tell you about the program. I could stand here for hours, but I'd like you to hear about her experience directly from one of our students. So please welcome from the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy, Yasmin Kanate. Come on, Jalen Rose, let's go. Thank you, you're going to be great.
Handshake, but thank you. The experience I had in the Career Readiness Academy Detroit Economics Club program was truly remarkable. In the CRA, I was able to learn about various career fields, college and non-college opportunities available to me post-graduation, and engage in lessons and activities that enhance my networking and financial skills. It continued with me learning about entry opportunities within my desired career fields and what education and experiences would be needed. I was also granted the opportunity to see different technical and skill trades at Oakland Community College, including health and emergency services. Furthermore, I learned about the do's and don'ts of LinkedIn when building resumes and how to enhance them, an important key in our world of emerging technologies. Though to me, the best lessons were those about budgeting, learning how to make educated decisions, and learning what taxes really are. Truly, the Detroit Economics Club has helped me in preparing for crucial decisions and steps needed to be made regarding one's career and finances. Moreover, the CRA Detroit Economics Club program has given me insights into our world that will not only follow me into my future careers, but as well as into my personal life. Each lesson gave me the material I need to achieve success in my future in every forefront. Like the lessons where we did an activity that helped us simulate our future lifestyles based on our earnings from our future careers without going broke. It was definitely a reality check, and I think I learned I'm going to have to be really successful for the lifestyle I want or cut back on groceries. I would also like to mention the mentors that helped me and my fellow classmates to take it to the next level and connect with successful individuals within our fields of interest. Our mentors really helped us, making these learning experiences fun and enjoyable. Again, the CRA DEC program has truly encouraged me to start working towards the success I seek to see in my adulthood and prepare me for what is to come. Thank you, Detroit Economics Club, and thank you, Career Readiness Academy.
Good job. That was so good. You did so good.
Way to go, Yasmin. We've got so much faith in you. You are a rock star already, and you're going to continue to rock this world. Thank you. So, at the end of today's meeting, if you've got an extra moment before you leave, please help these students graduate by letting them show off their networking skills and elevator pitches, and you'll be lucky enough to meet Yasmin as well. So I thank you for doing that. I promise you, you will be glad you invested a few minutes. All right, finally, and we'll get on with the program. You can be involved in the program. Use your smartphone. We want you to take lots of pictures, share with your social media networks, and also you can submit a question for Mike using the QR code that's on your table. So to get us started, I'm going to introduce our presiding officer, John Fickney. He is the CEO of the Fickney Group, and he is a let's roll up our sleeve kind of DEC board member. He's a huge supporter of all things Detroit Economic Club and the Career Readiness Academy and Young Leaders, and he's a huge supporter of me, personally, an amazing friend to me. Now, having John here today is a full circle moment, isn't it? Because John was the keynote of our very first career readiness session with these students back in December. And I'm going to tell you, he changed some students' lives that day with an impactful keynote on personal branding. And I know the students are happy to reunite with him today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Fickney.
Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon, DAC members and guests. Before I begin, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the CRA students and their DAC young leaders that made this program possible. As you said, I was involved in this from the beginning, and to see your faces again and to be able to come up to you and talk to you and see you still fired up, it just gets me so excited about what the future has in front of us for the next generation of leaders. And I also want to shout out these young leaders. Mike, we have 1,000 young leaders here in the Detroit Economic Club, 40 and younger. And they step up to help out the community. And this is just one example of what we're doing to help the next generation of leaders. So give you guys a round of applause. Nice job. I also need to give a shout out to my good friend Steve Gregorian and his tremendous team. They have created one of the top speaking platforms in the world. And this is where the top leaders choose to come to share their vision and their point of view. And today is no exception. We got a special day today, folks. And I've had the opportunity to speak with our guest speaker before this started here, and I'm just as fired up as you are. It's my honor to introduce him today. He is the CEO, the president, and board of director at T-Mobile, US. He became the CEO in April 2020, and previously serving, though, as the president, COO, and CMO. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree in economics from Wharton School of Business in the University of Pennsylvania. And off the court, he is a seaplane pilot and likes to explore the Pacific Northwest with his beautiful wife, Susan, and his 2 kids. But there's more to that. This gentleman, in my opinion, is an unapologetic disruptor, a true game changer. And he's done this in multiple industries, in multiple countries, in multiple companies. Now get this. Prior to T-Mobile, before 2012, he held leadership positions at little companies like AT&T, E-Trade, IBM, Procter & Gamble, and his tiny little company named Microsoft, where I had the fortune of working at the same time when he was there. So, in closing, he literally is transforming and reinventing the telco industry. T-Mobile is dominating 5G right now worldwide and miles ahead of their competition. This is a very important category for all of us. But more than anything else that impresses me about our leader you're going to hear from right now and the company he represents is they are for more than profit company. They are democratizing communication capabilities for everybody on this planet and everybody in this room. And I can't wait to hear your comments on where we're going with AI and other technology like that. So, folks, please give me a warm Detroit-style DEC welcome for Mike Sievert. Wow. There's a lot of energy there, Mike.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Speaking of energy, I'd like to introduce our moderator today. And she is an award-winning journalist who's been working in Detroit for more than 30 years. I know it doesn't look like it, but more than 30 years she's been doing this here in Detroit. She's worked with WJBK, Fox 2, and CBS Detroit as an anchor, a reporter, and a weathercaster. Now that's diversity. She does it all, right? Today, she can be heard on WWJ News Radio 950 as she is their morning drive anchor. Please give a big welcome, Detroit style, for Jackie Page. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John, and I think my mic is already on. Okay, and of course, welcome, Mike. That was quite a video, and we'll just get right to it. First of all, what do you think so far of Detroit?
Oh, well, having a fantastic time. By the way, a lot of the people in that video are from the best darn management team in worldwide telecommunications, and they're right here. So welcome my incredible T-Mobile team. We're all having a great time. This is an incredible place. Later today, I'm gathering about 400 of our employees from the area for a pep rally and a town hall, and we're going to do this thing we do. After we're all done celebrating, we're going to get down to business and figure out, what is it we can do to make connections better for customers in Greater Detroit, and what are the problems they're running into, and what are the network hotspots. And so we celebrate, but then later today we're going to get down to business and try to make connections better for all of you.
That's incredible that you talk about hotspots right off the bat. I mean, I think that's the thing that many of us have gotten away from, and I'll get to my questions in a second, but we want our phones to actually make a phone call.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go online, you could do everything, and you exploded your 5G network during a global pandemic. And I do want you to talk about that but first I just want to ask about, John talked about your career, and you've really made quite the journey in your career. Could you tell us how it started and then just how you got where you are?
All right. Jackie, I guess the first thing I would say is it's a real privilege to be able to lead one of the largest organizations in the world, certainly the most successful telecommunications company in the world. And therefore, I get to meet a lot of other people who are at sort of the top of their fields. And I'll tell you this, if any one of them who are at the top of their fields don't tell you that some large measure of how we wound up with this privilege was just blind luck, they're not self-aware. I mean, and for me, so many, and look, I feel like I'm good at what I do, and we can come back to that. But like an awful lot of how I wind up with this privilege to do this thing in this moment is just luck. And and I can tell you some of those luck stories if you want, but like everybody's got them. And I get to meet really successful people, whether they're in arts and entertainment, culture, whether they're in business, whether they're in athletics, and a lot of times, you got a lucky break somewhere along the way.
Okay, you do have to give us just one incident.
Oh, all right. Okay, I'm going to go way back.
Okay.
You asked me to go way back. Okay, so I had a pretty good high school resume. I was like one of those involved kids, president of the student body, and did a bunch of leadership stuff and, good grades and stuff. And so successful high school career, but I was also lazy and a procrastinator. And I decided to apply early admission to the school of my choice, and therefore you apply in November. And much to the incredible dismay of my parents, I didn't start the college application until the day it was due. And
like my kids.
This is the different era, okay, than today, where people have coaches and all this stuff. Anyway, so I started it that morning. And back then, you didn't submit it online. Like, you had to type this stuff up onto forms and stuff. And then you had to, the way they knew whether you got it done on time was you got it postmarked the due date. This is how it worked. This is how it all worked until actually just a few years ago. And so I'm trying to come up with essays and stuff, and so I get it done, and I'm typing it, and something got messed up, and it has to be postmarked today, and so we're reaching the point now where only the downtown post office in Canton is still open. That's a 20-minute drive, and it's closing, and I'm still not done. So I wrap it up, I get done, and I put it in my car, and it's all typed up. And I rush to the post office, and it closes at 5 p.m. on a Saturday. And I arrive at 5:03. And I start banging on the door. and it's a post office, all right? Like, they're under no obligation to open that door. And so, like, this guy comes to the door, and he's like, what, we're closed. And I said, I just need this postmark today. And he's like, I got you, man.
That's awesome.
And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be sitting here right now if that guy, I mean, I might be somewhere else, you know.
Yeah.
But like, and there's a million of these things. And I think any successful person that tells you there wasn't some measure of good fortune that allowed us the privilege to do something like, I get to lead the most amazing, the most successful team in worldwide telecommunications. And that's an incredible privilege of a lifetime.
Well, you have an attitude of gratitude, and that seems to have gotten you pretty far.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so talk about the Uncarrier. First of all, where'd that name come from?
So it started in 2012. In fact, the first time, by coincidence, we used that word was in the press release with my predecessor, John Ledger, announcing that I was being hired in 2012, and we decided to call ourselves the America's Uncarrier in November of 2012. And John and I came in about the same time in the fall of 2012. He was the CEO before me. I came in as the Chief Marketing Officer. And we had kind of spawned this idea, along with the then communications chief, that we wanted to kind of try to break out from the carriers. And back then, you have to back up. Back then, US wireless was dominated by two duopolists. The rest of us were distantly behind. And the duopolists made all the rules of the industry, AT&T and Verizon. And back then, the rules were not very customer friendly. I mean, they're doing better now. Even those guys are doing better now. But back then, it was pretty customer unfriendly industry. The whole shtick was to sort of lock you into a contract and then kind of like, you know, jack up prices and kind of not great service, and you'd be stuck, and you couldn't even get a new phone until they told you you could, and all these rules.
That was back then,
This
or
is
today?
back then. And so we decided to be that,
Yeah.
and chart a new course and become the Uncarrier. And the whole idea of the Uncarrier is just so simple. It's about putting your faith and trust in customers. It's really about what we call it at T-Mobile. Our first value of our 5 values is love our customers. And you think about that, well, that's an interesting word, isn't it, to use in a business context? You know, love. But think about it, it sort of applies. You know, what happens in love? Well, you know, you put yourself out there.
Two-way street.
You know, and if you feel it authentically, the way T-Mobile in our culture does, you put yourself out there, not even knowing for sure if it's going to be reciprocated, you know? You take your shot, you know? You go at risk. And if you're the Uncarrier, what you do is the grand gesture. You know, what we call them Uncarrier moves, where we do these big things to try to change the rules of the industry for customers, to make it better for customers, more fair, more transparent, lower price, get more, and change the industry around them, hoping that they'll reciprocate by choosing us and then sticking around. And that's the basic ethos of this company that has taken us from 12 years ago, a distant number 4 player, rapidly shrinking when John and I arrived in 2012, with negative year-over-year growth, negative EBITDA, actual negative cash flows, a market cap of $6 billion and rapidly shrinking, to 12 years later today, the world's most valuable telecommunications company of any kind.
Incredible.
That one insight, love
Incredible.
your customers.
But to love your customer, you have to create a company culture where your employees also love each other. How did you do that?
You know, I'd say to a certain extent, John and I found a company that had an incredible culture already. And he, as a leader, uniquely was able to inspire and foster this thing that we found already. I'll tell you that when I came in to lead marketing in 2012, remember, the company's declining rapidly. I had assumed, looking in from outside, and I had some experience in wireless. I was the CMO at AT&T Wireless years before. I assumed that there was a people problem in the company. Like, I literally thought, all right, I'm going to take this thing, we're going to maybe get it turned around, but I'm going to have to clean house, you know, and bring in my crew, you know?
Yeah.
And what I found instead was an incredible, skilled, knowledgeable, customer-loving team that knew exactly what to do, and were being told no, you know, by an organization that had short-term financial thinking, wasn't willing to make the leap of faith, to believe in customers and believe that they would return that faith with their loyalty. And they knew what to do. In fact, as CMO, I never swapped out any of the team. We wound up picking people from within and elevating them. But the culture was there. What John created and what I've perpetuated in the years that I've been running the company is this idea of just stopping to listen to our people. And that's what I was saying we're doing this afternoon. We call it smashing pain points. Everywhere I go, if I'm here for something else, I meet with our team and just listen. And because what people will say, well, you know, there's this policy that we have and the way our systems work and how somebody returns a phone and it doesn't seem fair and it doesn't seem transparent. And they think maybe that some geniuses at headquarters have got it all figured out. And they're almost afraid, unless you create the culture of acceptance, they're almost afraid to bring it up because they don't want to sound stupid. Like obviously the policy was created by geniuses at headquarters. And it turns out like, no, it's just kind of a dumb policy. And we didn't know. You know, it's a really big company and it's a complicated company. So we listen. And that's something that, you know, we perpetuate. And, you know, it's still working for us all these years later.
And you guys love him, right? Yeah. Okay, so talking about the network, and I know because we don't have a ton of time, but you know, you were the premier 5G 2 years ago, and now yesterday you just acquired Mint Mobile. So you now, I know you're the number 2 carrier or uncarrier. Tell us how did you get there?
Yeah.
What's going to happen now in the future with Mint Mobile, and what's it like to hug Ryan Reynolds?
Well, first of all, on the network, the president of our technology group, Ulf Olbenson, is here in the room with us, and Ulf is the mastermind behind our 5G strategy. Our company, again, we were tied for worst in network just 5 years ago. And we were tied with Sprint, who is now T-Mobile. Like, we had Sprint and T-Mobile, who were tied for worst. And what we found, though, was that the assets of these companies were so complementary that if we were able to bring the companies together, we could create something that's never been done before in the world. And we were lucky, but also good, that we understood where 5G would unfold. I'll geek out with you for 1 second. Our competitors, AT&T and Verizon, believed that 5G would unfold around something called millimeter wave spectrum. That's very high band frequency, very high capacity, and they spent billions of dollars buying millimeter wave spectrum, and then 5G came, and it didn't turn out to be about that. We believed during the 4G era that 5G would unfold in mid-band spectrum. This is sort of the Goldilocks spectrum, where it has high capacity, like high band, but it also goes through walls. You know, and it can transmit further from towers. And we thought that is where 5G will unfold. You know, people will be satisfied if we can make their phones 25 times faster than 4G. It doesn't have to be 100 times faster than 4G. And we made that bet. And we were right. We were lucky, maybe, but we were right. So Sprint had the treasure trove, the motherlode of mid-band spectrum, but was financially failing. They couldn't put it to work. You know, they really were just not in a position to build a 5G network that was competitive. But they had the raw ingredients. And so we had this incredible growing brand, the fastest growing brand in wireless, but we were running out of radio spectrum. So you can see how the merger was a perfect marriage. So we brought them together, made sure to commit to low prices, created the world's best 5G network from the synergies, because the synergies of the merger created $40 billion in found money. We used that money on top of $20 billion we were already planning to spend $60 billion to build the world's best 5G network.
That's a lot of money.
Well, it's a lot of money. And what we forced our competitors to do was they realized that they had been wrong, and a government auction for more mid-band spectrum came. It's called the C-band. And AT&T and Verizon were forced to collectively to spend $90 billion just buying the spectrum. Not building the networks, just buying the spectrum. And so today, fast forward, we've spent all of our money building the network on the spectrum we got from the Sprint merger using synergies. They've spent all their money buying the spectrum to try to catch up, try and fail to catch up with us. And so they're really in a tough spot because we have the world's best network right now. People don't know it. Brands are powerful and brands are stubborn. So like you might think, wait, I thought Verizon was the best network. Yeah, they were. They were in the 4G era. But now that we're in the 5G era, and that's long since passed. And so we have a lot of work to do to convince people, but now we have the best network. Average speeds nationwide are more than twice as fast as the competition. That's the power of what we've built. And we can defend it because we still have the superior assets. But we have the lowest prices. Think about that. In the 35-year history of this industry, no one has ever had the best deal and the best network, like at the same time. And we can defend that. Why? Because we have the lower costs, because we have a better balance sheet. They had to load, they are the world's biggest debt issuers. AT&T and Verizon each have twice as much debt as us. That means we have permanently lower costs. And with permanently lower costs, we can permanently perpetuate our superior value. So you have better network and better value, both of which we can sustainably continue to foster.
So a family of four wants to get T-Mobile, want to move everything to T-Mobile. What's the best deal?
Oh, just email mike.sievert@t-mobile. And part of what's interesting is you get lower prices with us, but you also get more. And that was, to the premise of your question, that was the ethos that we liked in Mint Mobile. Because, and Mint Mobile has always worked on our network, so we've always been partners, but it was a separate company. And it was a company and is a brand totally dedicated to putting customers first and kind of taking all the BS out of wireless. And Ryan is so great at telling that story. He's just an incredible storyteller, and he's so funny and impossibly handsome. And
even in person?
Yeah. And so, look, and he's going to be a part of this story going forward and has agreed to stay, and it's going to be a wonderful journey. And we were able to add Mint and Ultra to our portfolio. Yesterday was the close of the year-long transaction, and now we have nearly 125 million customer connections here in the U.S.
Congratulations. That's incredible. That's really incredible. And, okay, so I know that, again, time, and I hate to jump from customer loyalty and everything else to AI, but we did want to talk about that a little bit. And that does seem to be a future, or the future, of not of computer science, but my industry, the industry that you were talking about applying for college, kids are using that for people are using that for their thesis, people are using that for their applications. What do you think it's going to do to the mobile industry?
I think we're living through an incredible moment. And, I'm old enough to have been through some of the prior incredible moments in technology. I bought my first computer in 1979, with a year's newspaper route earnings. I was a 10-year-old newspaper carrier. And it was, by the way, if you're keeping score, it was a Radio Shack TRS-80 Model 1, if you know anything about computers. And then I was around in business when desktop computers started to proliferate. I mean, I didn't have a desktop computer in my first job. That's how old I've been around. Obviously the internet, 1996, the popularization of the internet. I was there on the first management team of a burgeoning .com company called E-Trade, and then mobile. And I've been able to have a front row seat to mobile. I think AI is going to be bigger than any of those things. This is going to be the most transformative technology of
in a good way or a bad way?
I think in a fantastic way. And like other technology disruptions, society is going to have to do hard work to make sure it's a net positive. But we're only seeing the very beginnings of what this is capable of. When this isn't going to be about writing you poems, and it's going to be about taking the rote, repetitive, manual work that humans don't want to do. And I am so excited about that. We're going to completely change how we run the company. And I also think that AI will give incumbent companies like T-Mobile an advantage that none of the prior technology waves gave. In fact, prior technology waves were about giving guys in garages a chance to compete with big companies. And they've competed so well, they've taken over, right? Google, Microsoft, et cetera. This wave of technology is about giving incumbents like T-Mobile a chance to compete with guys in garages for the first time. Why? Because AI is fundamentally about the data. And we've got the data. You know, with customers' permission, if they grant it to us, you know, we can train AI on an enormous quantity of data to make people's lives better. And that's a once-in-a-career opportunity. So we're really focused on that right now. I've told our team for about 2 years that we are on a mission to completely transform T-Mobile as a deeply data-informed, AI-enabled, digital-first company. And it makes sense when you think about the level of transformation that we can undergo. I mean, ultimately what we do is radically simple at T-Mobile. I mean, like it's a monthly subscription to the internet. That's it. We charge you by the month to transfer your signal from a phone we didn't invent to a set of tower technologies we didn't invent. That's it. We're a system integrator, and it's a monthly. So why is it so complicated? You know, you have to spend a whole Saturday of your life to switch to T-Mobile or upgrade, and you know, we take 3 million customer service calls a week.
It's incredible.
Why? It shouldn't be that complicated. So the data can see and prevent problems. You know, in 2023, we had the lowest churn ever in our history. That's the number of people who leave T-Mobile and throw up their hands and go somewhere else. The lowest in the industry, and for part of the year, the lowest that the industry has ever seen. Wonderfully loyal customers. That being said, because of our massive scale, millions of people left T-Mobile during our best year ever and the lowest churn ever in Q2 of any company. Millions of people left, and every single one of them left a breadcrumb trail of data as to why. And in the past in our industry, no one has ever looked at that data. Like, it's a census, not a survey. Every single one. Something happened in their network experience that was less than ideal, or there were drop calls, or they experienced congestion, or cell edge conditions, or something went wrong, or their bill was confusing and not as expected, or we saw things that were predictors, like they would start retrenching from their service and dropping lines and sort of stepping back or falling late on their bill. All kinds of things can happen, and it's all in the data. And so now with AI, we can look at all that data, figure out patterns that lead to dissatisfaction and disrupt them. You know, cut them off. You know, reach out to customers with a solve before the problem becomes a problem, and make people's journey with T-Mobile better. That's so powerful, let alone the new businesses that we can get in. Purely financial investors look at opportunities like getting into fiber and put their money in purely financially. T-Mobile looks at opportunities, like we announced a fiber transaction last week. We're going to be in a fiber business. We look at it not purely financially, but what can we bring? Well, we bring a brand that tens of millions of people love. We bring massive nationwide distribution in all 50 states. We have an absolutely zealous, customer-loving team. We have treasure troves of data that we can put to use to make customers happy in this new category. And of course, the world's best 5G network. So these are advantages that allow us to go into new businesses and have a leg up in a way purely financial investors would not. So this era of AI will help us run our core better, lower cost, better service, new ways to serve customers, but also allow us to enter new categories with the T-Mobile brand in a way that we never could have done the same way before.
So you're doing very well, and you see this as not only very personal, but also as your company, to be philanthropic and sort of bridging that digital divide, which is here in Detroit is something that's very big in terms of getting service to the underserved. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. One of our 5 values is dream big and deliver. And part of it is when we have, in this current chapter of our company, when we brought Sprint and T-Mobile together, we started to have a level of aspiration that we never could have had before as a smaller company. Like, for example, we said, why should there be any dead spots on planet Earth? Why don't we come up with a way for mobile phones to connect directly to satellites in space so that if you can see the sky, you're connected? And we got together with SpaceX and architected a multi-year technology partnership. They're the world's most advanced space organization. And we're doing it now, and this year will be, we're already testing. We have satellites in space By the end of this year, we should be in end-user customer testing, so that if you can see the sky, you're connected directly to your mobile phone, not your brand new mobile phone that's compatible, but your existing one. In philanthropy, when we brought the company together, we said, what if we could chip away, do more than chip away at the digital divide issue? What if we could actually have the audacity to pick an aspect of the digital divide and solve it? And that was the foundation of what we call Project 10 Million. There are 10 million kids in this country that don't have internet at home, school-age kids. And 85% of teachers give homework assignments that require you to have the internet at home. But 10 million don't have it. And education's supposed to be the great leveler in our society. But if you're not connected, you're going to fall behind. So we said, what if we could create an initiative? Governments have tried this, NGOs have tried this, that doesn't just chip away at the homework gap, digital divide problem, but solves it. That was 5 years ago. Today we've connected 6 million kids with almost $6 billion of free and subsidized service on our way to the 10 million goal. And that's the kind of thing that we can do.
It's incredible.
At this scale.
That is incredible. Well, you've been magnificent. We're actually just about done. I just want to say, is there any sort of, we talked a little bit, he actually says he's an introvert, which I find unbelievably, I think it's incredible. You give obviously a lot of energy to all of the people that are here, so you leave exhausted. Tell us how an introvert can be the CEO of a company for a lot of the kids that are here that are probably pretty shy and think they could never do something like that.
Yeah, if you talk to a lot of people in the arts, broadcasting, a lot of people are introverts. And I'll tell you that for me, I think a lot about the engagements that I'm going to have, and then I throw myself into it, and I get the energy from the room. That's really important. Camera work's a lot harder for me, And I took over as CEO 3 weeks into the COVID pandemic, and that was the same day we merged with Sprint. We were welcoming tens of thousands of new employees, and I'm the brand new leader. The last guy was a really outgoing, charismatic guy with a big following. And I always knew I was going to have to travel around and kind of rebuild the culture when it was my time. And we were stuck at home. And it was like, okay, what are we going to do? And they would, and it was like, stick a camera in your face this far and go, all right, Mike, remember, motivating and inspiring in 3, 2, 1, and you're live. And I'm like, and if they're like, okay, if you're going to read a script, it doesn't come across as authentic, even though it's your words and you've thought about them. But like looking at the little red dot in a camera is so different than looking at an audience. And so I much prefer an audience. But I've learned over the last few years to do camera work. And then either way, these things afterward, totally exhaust me. After I engage with people, I try to throw myself into it. And then I need a nap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's okay. And so if you're somebody that shies away from, for me, a group is a little better than a one-on-one. One-on-one conversations make me nervous. If you're somebody that shies away from some amount of human interaction or it's exhausting to you, don't worry about it, And it's part of what all of us have to do in our journeys is figure out what does stepping out look like for you, Because most fulfilling careers come from people finding their own authentic way to take a chance on themselves and find somebody that will take a chance on you. That's ultimately what the journey is about.
Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of T-Mobile, Mike Sievert.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And John Fickney.
Thank you, Jackie.
Jackie, great job. Great questions. I took a ton of notes there, Mike, so thank you. I'm sure everybody learned something here today. But we have some questions that came from the audience, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I could fire them at you. Let's start with this one. Is the telecom industry healthy, or are there too many carriers?
It's really healthy. And one way you can look at the health of the industry is our customers getting more. Let's go back to the industry in a minute. But the very first measure is it getting better for customers? Absolutely. And I'll give my competitors credit. AT&T and Verizon are much more customer friendly than a decade ago. I think that has a lot to do with T-Mobile, to be honest. I don't know if they would admit that, but I think the industry is way more customer friendly. I also think 5G people who are observing 5G are wondering, where's the big 5G dividend? Weren't we promised that 5G would change the world? And that's a longer answer, but I'll tell you that in smartphones, the average American consumer, I'm not talking about T-Mobile now, just industry-wide, is getting 4 times faster speeds than just 5 years ago on your smartphone, and you are consuming 3 times more data for the same price. So the unit cost of what you use in wireless has plummeted. In a world of inflation where everything's more expensive than it was 5 years ago, your wireless costs you per unit you use of the product we build, a third to a fourth of what it costs just 5 years ago, just a fraction. And yet the industry is more cash flow positive than ever before. And so, this year the industry generated cash that exceeded any year in our history. T-Mobile, for example, nearly 40% year-on-year cash flow growth in Q1.
Great question, great answer. How do you make sure you take security of your customers' data as serious as possible? Security is a big issue for people. What are you doing about it?
Nobody in our industry has a bigger burden on this than T-Mobile because we suffered a breach a few years ago that was well covered. Unfortunately, one of our competitors suffered one more recently. So back then, we had to really sit down and exhale and ask ourselves all the tough questions. And what we found was we can do better. And so we brought the world's experts in. This is years ago now, because our breach, the famous one, was in 2021. We brought in the world's experts, and we rehired our own staff too. We brought in new leadership in our organization and really got to work. And what we found was if you are willing to embrace the community of people who really deeply understand this, you can make progress. In fact, we have hackathons where we bring ethical hackers, some of the world's brightest minds, and pay them to break into our systems. And we do this over and over and over again. And they find issues. Luckily, they're not critical issues anymore, but they find issues. And then we close them out, with minutes or hours later. We pay them for this. So, the sophisticated techniques that are being applied now on both sides are mind-blowing. The criminals are using AI to attack us thousands of times a day. And we're using AI to defend our network thousands of times a day. And, so far it's working. But I'm very, very proud of our team and what we've built in the last 3.5 years.
Well, a sign of a great leader in a great company is how you balance humility with confidence, and you do an outstanding job of that, and that's why you're getting the results from your team and your company's financials as well. Here's a good question for you. 10 to 15 years from now, what will be the biggest change in how we communicate with each other?
Well, as it relates to technology-assisted communication, I think there's a chance to create a much better sense of presence. What we learned, the whole debate post-COVID, right, was return to office, not return to office, remote work, drove everybody crazy. It created so much anxiety and discord in companies. And there's a reason for it, which is there was a group of people that said, I like the way this feels and how it fits in my life. And another group of people saying, yeah, but the communication isn't as good. And that part was true. It's just not as good. Zoom is not as good as being there. There's something about the latency. There's something about the eye contact, the ability for everybody to talk over each other the way real humans do instead of taking turns. And those are the kinds of things that we aspire to create with our partners. With 5G, especially the way we do it, brings latency down to milliseconds. And we can create instances much closer to the customer, put the data centers closer to the customer, and work with partners to create ways to simulate eye contact and talking over each other. So we're far from done with how we can make remote communications feel as personal as in-person communications. And I can't wait to see how it all unfolds.
Well, with your big dream mentality as part of one of your pillars and your willingness to partner like you just did with SpaceX, there's no question that you guys are going to have an impact to that in the future. I'm fully confident of that. You mentioned something about, the prices going down, but a couple questions in here on the cost of living. It's very high right now. And as a company, how do you respond to this regarding your customers' concerns? It sounds like you're doing it, and the industry's doing it, but is there anything you want to add to that?
About
Challenges of people right now with the cost of everything. Is there something you're doing that's maybe differentiated from some of your competitors?
Well, all we can commit to is being the lowest cost structure provider that translates into the very best deals. That doesn't mean we're immune from changing our prices. It's been a decade since we've done that. Costs have risen. I signaled to Wall Street we were probably going to have to tinker with things. And that's hard for a company like T-Mobile. But over the years and years, costs rise. But what I can commit to is that T-Mobile will always have this Un-carrier ethos of putting customers first, giving them more, charging them less, giving more to them, expecting less from them, because that's what makes our brand so powerful. And over time, if costs rise and they keep rising with inflation where it is, we may have to touch our prices. Who knows? But we're going to be a much better deal than our competitors, and give people more, and try to think of new ways to use our newfound scale to get other companies to provide them more as well. And that's the magic of this. Our latest Un-carrier move is this thing called Magenta Status, where it's our partners now giving you like gold level tier status from day one just because you're a T-Mobile customer. And this is so cool. We're at the very beginnings of this. Like, when you rent, just one more commercial, you rent a rental car, and what's the very worst part of traveling in a rental car? Like anybody? The very worst. I'll tell you what it is for me. It's fueling up. That's the worst. You're jamming for your plane. So we worked with Hertz, and the T-Mobile through Magenta Status, every single T-Mobile customer for every single dollar rental car gets the gas tank for free and just goes back, toss the keys to the guy like a baller, and drive right by that gas station.
It's awesome.
Right? Those are the kinds of things you can do when you have the scale, but also the passion and commitment of serving customers differently, those kinds of partnerships. And so, rent from dollar. If you're with T-Mobile, free gas forever.
You're also the Wi-Fi on Delta.
Yeah, we have this incredible partnership with Delta and the other airlines so that your Wi-Fi is free. So this is kind of the Un-carrier ethos, the idea of giving more. And a lot of times that's through partnerships. We use our scale and our passion for this. So, everywhere you go on the major airlines now, your Wi-Fi on your flight is free. And the person with Verizon next to you is like, how'd you do that? Isn't that $10? And you're like, no, it's free every time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me.
Hey, we're getting some business done here. Is everybody ready to sign up?
I love it.
You guys are great.
I love it. All right, so a lot of people, we have different presenters coming up. They always give their opinion on this remote work conversation. You're a mobile company. So how do you handle this in the office versus working from home with your teams?
We established our pattern in 2021, thankfully. After vaccines were available and stuff, we said, look, we're going to have a hybrid model. We want people to be in the office, if you have an office job, 3 days a week or more, and a majority of your time or more. So don't stop in 3 days, like a majority of your total time. And one of the reasons why we did this is because of solidarity. I have part of my network team is here. They don't have a choice. There's no office. They're out in the field making sure your critical connection works every day. They didn't go home in 2020. We operate 7,000 retail stores. There were a few weeks there in March, April, and May where we closed most of those. But by summer of 2020, all of them were back. And those people didn't have any choice. They worked right through the sweaty mask. And so, why? We feel like it's sort of was partly about solidarity and privilege, that we wanted our people that had office jobs back. It was part of our better together culture. And luckily, we did this in 2021. So now at T-Mobile, it's just not a thing we deal with and talk about much. It's been years. People do their thing. It's kind of in our culture now, and it's pretty quiet around the T-Mobile offices on Fridays. That's all right with me.
Well, I can tell. The people I know at T-Mobile are extremely excited and fortunate to work there. The videos I saw, I prepared for you, Your team's going crazy. I see Saber there. He's always got this big smile about being part of the T-Mobile team. And so you're doing something right. So congratulations, and I hope that spreads to other corporations here in the room, the trust that you give your team and everything. So I have some more personal questions that were asked here, a couple of those, and we'll get in the lightning round. How have you learned to balance the demanding job you have with your life? I mean, I know that you have to be on planes. You're here today. How do you balance all this being a CEO?
I think you got to make a deal with yourself and your family that works for you and for them, and then stick to it. And Suzanne and I have been together since we were 18 years old. And, you know, she has been unbelievably supportive of my career and, you know, hopefully vice versa. And the deal I struck with myself and with her was, I'm going to be focused on what I'm doing through the week, and I'm not going to work on weekends. That's just me. You do your thing. I'm just telling you, sharing what I do. And I've been doing this since I was a kid, since I was at Procter & Gamble in my early 20s. And I probably, you know, got passed over for things that harder working people that would work all day on Saturdays and Sundays, you know, might have had opportunities to do. But that was always my jam. And by the way, I said, look, I could be at business dinners, I could be traveling through the week. I don't commit, don't expect me. But I made an awful lot of those weekday dinners too. But it's just our agreement was, didn't have to. And you know, so that was our life, and still kind of is.
Can you write a book on this for some of the people in the room, including myself, because this is not an easy one, and you work at some very demanding companies. I mean, you worked at IBM and Microsoft and AT&T, Procter & Gamble. These aren't easy to have that balance, so congratulations. But it's about setting those boundaries, right?
Yeah,
and you did
and look, there's a difference between an emergency and a manufactured emergency. A manufactured emergency is where a boss wants a PowerPoint on Saturday, and it's just not okay with me. You know, unless it's like, look, if our network is having an emergency on a Saturday, you bet your ass I will be there leading my team. But if it's like somebody's idea was, you didn't get your shit together to ask me for this until Friday night at 6, that's not my jam. Like, you know, and you're probably not the manager for me. You know.
Attention, anybody who wants a PowerPoint on a Saturday.
Yeah.
This is great for not only the corporate people in the room, but for the students to hear this from a senior leader like this. We're going to dive into the lightning round.
Oh, lightning round. Okay.
I'm going to add a little extra one in there. There's one in here. It was a question, but I'm going to put it as a lightning round. So this is the opportunity to, the first thing that comes to your head, to just kind of, boom, come out with it. And there's some really fun questions.
Okay.
I want to start with one that came as an original question that I think is worth asking you, and I'd like to learn as well from this. How do you define success in your life?
Oh, that's hard for a lightning round. I got to give a real answer to that one, but I'll do lightning round the rest.
Go for it.
It is the people. You know, I mean, the only reason I still do this is the people. And long ago, you know, it was about, you know, there's a certain amount of success, but once you've realized a certain amount of success, that part doesn't really keep moving you. You know, I've achieved a lot in my career, and now the people I care about, I want to help them. I want to see them do the things that they're setting out to do and be a part of that, because ultimately that's what will last. You know, like, my boat isn't going to last. My house isn't going to be my legacy. Even some of my business results won't last. Companies are unbelievable at just curing themselves and moving on when you step away. Unbelievable at it. You think you're so special? They just move on. Here's your lasting impact. Did you help people there that will thrive after you go, and set them up to help more people after them that will thrive when they go? That is your legacy. And it's the same thing in your personal life. I mean, ultimately, this is going to sound a little grim. I mean, ain't none of us getting out of here alive.
Right.
All right? So ultimately, everything will be stripped away. And for me, you know, what will matter in my life is whether or not, you know, my wife, Suzanne, is there holding my hand when my time here is finished. That ultimately, everything else will be stripped away. So make sure to value those things.
You don't get to hear that from a person who runs one of the most powerful and financially strong companies in the world. So I'm glad someone asked that question. Let's go for some zingers. These
Okay.
are quickies. You ready for me? All right, first one. What was your first paying job?
I worked at the Gap.
All right.
By the way, if somebody at the Gap, or they come up to you, because I was very helpful, if they come up to you and they say, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you find your size?" That's amazing service, right? What they're saying is, "Don't touch my stuff. I just folded that." Get away from that stack.
That's great training for you to be a CEO. Work at the Gap. You heard it here first.
Can I help you find your size?
One of your favorite songs.
With or without you, by U2. Yeah. I will say though, that one's hard because I am polyamorous, and what I mean is like 3 nights ago I was at the Garth Brooks concert. Yesterday I was hanging out with Common. You know, my favorite song is With or Without You. So you know, so that's hard to give up.
But that's a good tune. I like that. TV show you last binged.
Shrinking. The one with Harrison Ford and Jeremy Siegel, brilliant characters in there.
Recommend it.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
All right,
yeah.
we're fans. All right, next. App you open most on that phone of yours.
All right, I'm going to be controversial here, but you want me to be truthful. TikTok.
Always.
Whoa, didn't expect that.
Oh, I'm an addict. And by the way, I don't think TikTok, first of all, there's really interesting questions data-wise and national security-wise. I'm not going to weigh in on those. Those are legitimate questions. But TikTok's awesome because I think it represents less of the kind of social harm to kids that some of the other social media people speculate. Because everybody there is a content creator, and you know they're a content creator, and they know they're a content creator, and the conceit of it is that they're a content creator. So if they're showing you how hot they are, it's because they think they're a content creator. And I think the rest of social media is like, oh, that person, they live a beautiful life, you know, with their beautiful things and their beautiful friends, and at their parties I'm not invited to and all this stuff. But this isn't really how TikTok is. It's media in many ways, not social media. It's got some of the same algorithm issues of like the echo chamber. That's tough. But I think it's great.
I think it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit you with 5 questions.
Okay.
Answer these in 30 seconds, 5 and 30.
Okay.
Ready for me?
Ready.
All right, here we go. What profession, other than your current one, would you like to try next?
Real estate developer, designing complexes, resorts, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
All right, ready? Something on your bucket list.
I'd like to learn to pilot jets instead of seaplanes. That seems like way cooler. You're like, I fly jets.
Top Gun, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Who's more intense, Steve Ballmer or Bill Gates?
Oh, Ballmer, no question about it. Yeah. Yeah.
You've been in some Gates meetings too, so I don't
Yeah.
know. That's close in my opinion.
Yeah.
Next, one of your favorite leaders you worked for and why? So we'll give you a second with that one.
John Ledger, I mentioned him twice already in this. My predecessor here, he's a good friend and partner. We did this whole journey at T-Mobile together, but I learned an awful lot about people leadership by working closely with him.
Describe Detroit in one word.
Hot dogs.
Put it together. Last question, we close the day with you. What would you tell your younger self?
Don't sweat it too much, you know? It's the journey is what it's really about, not the destination.
This was awesome today. Thank you. Let me
Thank
bring
you.
up Steve.
Yeah.
Come on up,
Good.
Steve.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Good. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Well done.
Is your wife your high school sweetheart?
I don't want this
no,
to
Mike,
end.
move-in
Any
day.
fan of you too, Mike, you're welcome back here anytime with or
All right.
without you. Yeah,
Thank
we'll do
you.
this. So thank you again for supporting the
Bet.
DEC, for being with us. Jackie, thank you for your important role. John, for your important role. All right, folks, it's time. We're going to help our CRA students graduate. If your schedule permits, please network with these terrific students as they show off their networking and elevator pitches. To the students, we're here to help you. We're here to help you succeed. Remember what I told you way back in session 1 and what Mike just said. It's all going to be okay. Just relax. So show us what you learned. On time, every time. This meeting of the Detroit Economic Club is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.